So whether my screen is visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So we have program in the previous class. What the program was, we wanted to display hello world. If you want to just display hello world, what you need to do is you should have a class. I mean, you should have a file name with hello, and inside that file you should have a class named as hello, and there you will be having public static void main, and inside that main function you should have system.out.println, and will be later on running this. So when you compile it, it creates a hello class, and when you execute it, it will give you the output, right? So I suppose hello program, you're all familiar with this, so I'll not go with this. Rather, I'll concentrate more on this one. So what you're doing here, you have a class. Let me show you that thing in Eclipse so that maybe you're quite familiar with that. So what you have a public class name as Kyle, and it has a Boolean expression. So Boolean will either take value true or it will take false. So by default, if you are using a non-parameter or zero parameter constructor, so what we are doing, we are saying that Kenny is if you consider a parameterized constructor, so I hope you remember about constructors. So if you consider parameterized constructor, you have a value that is over here. So this value is being assigned to the variable, correct? This value is assigned to the variable. Instead, if I have a function that which will return a string, and the name of the function is they killed Kenny, so if it is true, we will set it as false, and we'll return that your coders. Okay. Else, if it is not true, if it's not true, then it has to return question mark. Okay. So this thing is being called inside your main function. Main function is taking your AI. So it is creating a object. I hope you remember the creation of object. Kindly study that. It is most important one. It is most important one. So you have object of Kyle, then you are assigning string s, and you will call this particular function you're calling. So based on the value, it will either return your coders or it will return question mark, and you are just going to print that particular string. So it is a very simple program. If you execute this program, what will you get? This is the way of execution. What you are getting that Kyle your coders. Okay. Kindly you guys join in time. It is most important. Okay, so you got this particular thing, or the particular result. So instead, if I change the value over here to false, if I change the value over here to false, I'm saving it, and so what did it return? It returned question mark, correct? So this is how the classes are moving. That's all. Okay, nothing big. So if you, I mean, I suppose you're very familiar with the execution of these kind of classes, I suppose. You just need is a small amount of practice, and that is what I prefer for you guys. And I suppose that everyone has executed all your lab programs in the previous semester, so you will be having Eclipse also present with you. So kindly install Eclipse and start executing these Java programs, small programs. You will get lots of code snippets on internet also. Try and execute them very oftenly so that you can understand. Okay, so we'll just move on to different concepts of Java. The first concept is array. Normal arrays are there. They are usually fixed in size or they may be variable length in size. So what is an array if you consider? It is just a homogeneous set of elements present at one single place, correct? Like different elements but homogeneous in nature but stored at a single place, correct? Now the point is we are not interested in normal arrays where it stores normal values, but we are interested in something called as object. Okay, so you have here, right? You have something called as array of objects. So we are interested in this particular part, that is array of objects. How to create an array of different objects. Now, when you learned about structures, there also you did array of structures, right? One struct value, then two struct value, then you had an array of struct values. So similar on the similar guidelines, if you want to follow regarding objects, wherein we want a queue or any number of objects listed one behind the other. If I want to do that, then what should be done? Correct? So the solution is just given below. You can see here, consider that animal is the name of a class. Now, if I want to have object, so definitely I should have a class, correct? So if I don't have a class, I cannot have objects, correct? So name of the class. Now, how you used to define your array, a normal array, you used to use int, any data type value. So instead of data type value, here what you are doing, object, if you want to create, you should have class. So what you are doing, instead of data type value, you are creating or you're using class. Class of what? Class of a set of array, and I will give the name. Now, what is this name? This name is nothing but it should be new. It should be having new objects of what? Of animal itself. That is the name of the class itself. So only pointers are being assigned. Now I have not assigned any values. So I have just created an array. Now object, I've just created an array. Guys, most important. Okay, so now you have just, what you have done is you have just created array of pointers. That is, array is present. Every point inside the array, every value inside the array is not an object. Is not an object. Okay, so you have to create that object. How will you create that object? I'll just use a for loop. Sorry, I'll just use a for loop. I'll just make use of a for loop where the for loop's length will be till the array's length. And I will go on creating an object of new to every element inside the array. Okay, to every element inside the array. This is how you are going to create list of or array of objects. I mean, if you want to create the whole array of objects, all the statements are very important. You should and must have all the statements. So you are creating an array which is of type animal, and every element is an object of array. Someone kindly advise Komala either to sit in a proper networked area or to leave the meeting. She's just disturbing. One of you just text her and tell. Okay, so this is how you're going to make use of array of objects inside your Java. Now, Java can also have multi-dimensional objects, correct? You had multi-dimensional objects, right? That is nothing but like two-dimensional you especially. And you also have three-dimension. There are so many things. Like if you want to represent matrix and all. So that time you will make use of multi-dimensional arrays. Now, when you want to have this multi-dimensional arrays in Java, this also supports it, and you can have objects in multi-dimensional arrays, and it is very simple. You can define it like this. Now, you can see in the previous slide, you have defined single dimensional array like this, and in one for loop for every element you are assigning this. On the similar grounds, you should make use of two for loops and assign an object to every element present inside this particular array. So whatever you have done with the one dimensional array, same way you are going to behave with the two dimensional arrays or any multi-dimensional arrays also. Okay. So we'll go through one more concept called as static. That's the reason, like, I'm very fast, one thing, and I'm just telling you about the contents that you have to actually go through once again. Okay. So the next concept that you have to recall is about static. What is the meaning of static word? Static, if it is used with a data member, it behaves in a different way. If it is used with the member functions, its behaviors are changing. If it is used class, then it is completely different. So class is a point that we are least bothered about. We don't have static members or static things as class. Can text Koala just to leave the meeting? If she wants just attendance, I'll give her. Text her. It is quite very disturbing. So let us study what does static do if you are using that word with the member, that is with the member data or data member. Okay, you can see that in the example over here, this particular example, you are int x value considered as static, but there is int y value which is not static. Now what does it do? It has simple behavior. Assignment is performed on the first access to the class. Only one instance of x exists in the memory. Okay. So assignment is performed on the first access to that particular class. Whatever class you have for that particular class, your first class will be accessing it for the first time. Whichever is done or whichever is using that, or I can say whichever is currently using that particular thing is quite disturbing. Whichever class is object is using that particular value will be stored. Now you can see that in this diagram, especially. Okay, what is happening? You have class A, and there are two objects of class A, object A and object B. Both the objects are of class A itself. Okay, both the objects are of class A. You have a memory allocation for object A and you have a memory allocation for object B. Okay, so you have memory allocations, two separate memory allocation for object A and B. They are same type but of different nature or different values. Correct? That's the reason that there are two objects. Now object A also will have value for A, X and object B will also have value for X and Y, but Y is not static. So that is the reason that you will be having two separate Ys for A and B. Okay, two separate memory location of Y for A and B. But the condition with X is not same. X is having something called as X is static. So because it is static, there will be only one memory allocation of X, which is A dot X, and this is referred by object A as well as referred by object B. So what is happening if I just print system.out.println with B dot X? That time what it will do? It will print you the value of 1. Okay, next what you're doing A dot, that is first object, A dot X is equal to 5, you will change. See, you're changing that, A dot X is equal to 5 you're giving. Next you're trying to print the value from object B itself. Even though you print the value from object B, what is the value that you get in the output? You're getting it as 5. Next, what you are doing, you are just taking the class name. See here, it is not in the small letter. If it was in the small letter, I would have told you saying that we have taken an object name. But this is a class name dot x is equal to 10 I have mentioned. Even then, if I print the value from object B, that whatever value is changed to that particular value is being assigned. So this is how your static members behave. So what we say is, if any variable is considered as static in a project, remember, it is not static throughout the compiler, it is always for a project. If I consider any variable's value as static, then that particular variable is accessed by all the objects without changing the memory allocation also. Okay. What happens with member function? When you consider member function, it has a simple thing. Member function can access only static members. So if I want to have a static member function, then the contents used inside the static member function will be static only. It is mandatory. Second is that static member function can be called without instance. What is the meaning of instance? Instance means creation of object. So without creating object, without creating an object, you can just without creating an object, you can just call that particular member function and you can display the contents. Okay. Am I clear till here? So we'll see a small example over here. See here, you have a class. Inside this class, you have a variable called as number of TP, which is an integer, but at the same time it is static also. You have a object called as my color, derived from a class called as color. You can ignore that. And you have a constructor which is taking an object of color, and the value from C is being assigned to my color, and number of TP is being incremented inside this particular thing. Now I have a function that is called as how many teapots, and it is called static. Now this is static and it has certain contents inside this. Okay. Now the first thing is, see here, you are using a static function, that is how many teapots are there. So it is a static function. So inside the static function, I have to make use of static variable only, which is num of TP. Okay, it is a static variable. Now on the similar grounds, if you consider the second function, if you see here, this is static, no doubt. I'm using a function called as get color, and I'm creating this function as static. But I'm trying to use my color. Now my color is not static. So what it will do? It will produce an error. It will give you an error. Okay. First rule is that every static function can make use of only static members. It cannot make use of any other members. Second thing is that I can make use of these static members without creating an instance, in the sense without creating an object. Now, if I consider the usage of the same class, if I want to use that class, definitely I have to make use of an object, right? So what I have done, we have created an object called as TP1, and it is taking a variable value color as red, and we are using TP2 color taken is green. So one teapot color is red, one more teapot color is green. Okay. So if I want to print something, I want to make use of this particular function, that is how many teapots are there, I need not make use of teapot 1 and teapot 2. So I want to print the value. So what I'm doing, I have system.out.println. In that we have is what I have printed, and I'm directly making use of that particular function as teapot dot how many teapots. Okay, what we are doing is we are directly using the name of the class with the function. Okay, I'm not making use of any of the objects. I have created TP1 and TP2, no doubt, but we are not making use of TP1 and TP2. Why? Because that particular function is a static member function. So I need not make use of any of your objects. Okay, so static functions do not require instantiation. Okay, so you can also have static block. Completely set of block can be created as static. You can see here. So inside static, everything is considered as block. So inside you have like members or member functions or loops, whatever you have, all those things are being considered as static. Now, use of that, the use is that code that is executed in the first reference to the class. Okay, so whenever we consider this class, this set of code will be for that particular class. The value set by these will be considered first. Okay, so that is a profit of having a static block. You can have more than one static block also, and again the rule remains same. This only static members can be accessed by this particular block. No other members can be accessed inside. Okay, coming on to one more thing inside your Java, and that is called as string. So string is again a class present, and you create the object of that and you make use of it. So usually if you are making use of string in Java, so it is string of s and you create new string with hello. Okay, either you use it this way or you just stop it by string s. Either of the ways, what you're doing is you're just creating an object of a string and you are making use of it. So it is a readily available class, and you can make use of that particular class to store your values of array of characters. It is quite simple. Now string does not exist in C. Okay, you don't have any variable called as string in C, but C++ supports it. Okay, C++ supports it. So instead of string, it they could have been given some other name also, but they have named it as string for easier ways. So the concept of string actually started from your C++. The usage of this is very simple. You need not create array of characters and use it like that and then perform things. That's all. Otherwise strings remain same. Next section that you have is just flow of control. So what is flow control? All your decision making statements, all your loops come under this. So it is basically like C and C++. You do not have anything extra apart from something called as for each. Okay, so you have if else. I suppose you already know this. So if any condition is true, one block will be executed. If any condition is false, the next block will be executed. The most recent, like most used one. You will be having nested if. You can have else if ladder. All the things of Java are same as that of C, C++. Okay. On the similar grounds, you can have while loop as well as do while loop. So while loop is your pre-test statement, right? Like you need to test it and then you need to enter in. So you can have in the reverse way also. First you can execute, that is you can do the things and then check it. So pre-test loop and post-test loop, both are being supported by your Java. On the similar grounds, you have for as well as something called as for each that you have learned in your previous fourth semester. So this also executes same. Similarly, you have something called as switch. I'm just moving here because you already know these things. Okay, so you can have switch also. So switch is again, you can choose based on the cases that you have given, correct? So either it may be a string or a value or any other content, and you can also have your default also. So working of switch is same as that of your C or any C++. Okay. Java is also supporting something called as packages. Anybody can tell me what is this? Are you there? Can you hear me? ಇನ್ನ ತನಕ ಗಾಡಿಗೆ ಹೇಳಿಕತ್ತಿದ್ನೋ ಏನ್ ಯಾರ್ಯಾರ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರು?
Collection of classes.
Collection of classes is called as packages, correct? Yes, exactly. So what you have this keyword package, if what is the profit of using a package? It is very simple. You can just create a group of classes, a folder of classes, and give it to someone so that he can take it like an application and just run it without giving any codes. So that was a major profit of having a package. So whatever project you develop, you can make a package in that particular project. It is very simple. Even in your Eclipse also, if you're whenever you're creating a class, it will directly ask you whether what should be the name of the package. So if you give the name of the package over there, it will automatically create the package. And if you give that set of package to someone else, he can make use of that package and run some simple programs. Some simple outputs directly. You need not give him the code. Reasons package was being package was being created. Now the point is, very many have a wrong concept of package, saying that now Eclipse hogbeku, there you have to give the name of the package and then I have to bind it up and then give. No, package execution is very simple. Like if you are not comfortable using Eclipse for packages, you need not use. You can do only one thing. Run all the classes present inside your Eclipse in your project. Okay, so you usually in your project you will be having some 3 or 4 files, right? Maybe it is one is having main class, one is having some other class. All those things are possible, correct? So you can run all those files, that is all those .java files. When you run that, defaultly it is getting compiled, correct? Eclipse ಒಳಗೆ run ಮಾಡಿದ ಕೂಡಲೇ ಅದು compile ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಅದು run ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಹೌದಿಲ್ಲ? So it is defaultly compiling it. Now after compiling it, what will happen? All the .class files will be created for all Java. Okay, abc.java ittandre na adನ್ನು compile ಮಾಡಿದ ಕೂಡಲೇ I will get abc.class. This is fixed. So if I have such 10 files of Java, once I compile all those files, I'll get complete set of classes, correct? Now you take those class files, put it in a folder, zip it up and give it to someone. It will work the same as you have done in your Eclipse. It will be completely same. So creating packages is not a big deal. Okay. So if you give that folder to someone, he can make use of that. How can he make use of it? By using import statement, correct? I hope you already know that. So whenever you are making use of java.lang, java.utility, you are making that use, right? So what you are doing, import java.lang .star semicolon you give, right? That is the most popular thing that you always use, correct? So if you have created a package and someone else wants to use it, so what he has to do, give the statement import and give the name of the package that you have given, .star with a semicolon. If he gives that, what will happen? That time whatever the classes you have created and you have given him in the folder, he can directly make use of it. Okay. There is something else in your Java, and that is called as access control. So access control is going to have the complete control on your code. So it can be either public. So if it is public, then all your member functions and your data with whatever you have given it as public, it can be used and modified by anybody, correct? From outside in the sense from the scope of the class, outside the scope of the class. Okay, if you consider protected, if that particular class is being derived from someone, only those people can access it. Otherwise it is something like very it is related to your property. If you make your property as public, anybody can come in. There are outside people who can come and use your property and go. Okay, see, there is one thing specific. Use your property. They cannot take your property and tell that it is theirs. That is not possible. Okay, you have you have your property and you have made it as public, someone can come in, use that space for some amount of time and you can go. Very best example is your Kalyana Mandap, where you do all your functions. So you pay for it, you go there, you celebrate, and you're outside, correct? You're using that. That is what is public. It is a public place. Okay, so this is public property or access control. Next is protected. Like consider that you have a property. If you are not using it, it is your ancestors' property. Either your ancestor will use it or you will use it. Nobody else will use it. Okay, something like your home. All your ancestors were using it. In the same home you might also stay if you're in a permanent home. Okay, so that is called as protected. Will you allow others to come in and stay? No, only but you are allowing someone else who your next people or next generation, you will allow them inside, correct? So that is called as protected. Now there is something else called as private. What is the meaning of private? Only I will use. Nobody else, you will allow nobody else to use it, correct? So it is, especially if you want to remember this, you can think of any such objects where you are really very attached to it. Okay, so if you are attached, especially the best example for that is your phone. Apart from you don't like anybody else using it. So what do? You usually keep a password, correct? So your password is not known by your mother, neither by your father, none of your siblings also will be knowing your password, nor you will give your finger impressions for them. So by default, what is happening? Only you are going to use your phone at any cost, correct? So what is that? It is something called as private use. Only you are using. You have so many things in that, no doubt. You have so many data members, member functions executing for you, no doubt. But outside people are not allowed inside your phone. That is, outside people are not allowed to see your phone, correct? That is called as private. And there is something else, kind of a modifier also, or modifier is nothing but access control. All those things are same. Access specifier, access modifier, access control, everything is same. Okay. It is half taken from public, half taken from your what? Protected. Now, it can be called modified, instantiated, but by the same package. It is something like if you have an object which you can use, your ancestors can use, the people that whom you know very well, only they can use. The best example would be a book. No, not a book is correctly exactly. Anything which is present inside your home can be considered as default. Anybody can use it, but not completely outside people. ಯಾರೋ ಬಂದು ಅದನ್ನ ಮನೆಗೆ ತಗೊಂಡೋಗಿ ಬರಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನೆ ವಸ್ತು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನೆ ಒಳಗೆ ಇರ್ತದೆ. So that is called as default. Okay, so you have 4 access specifiers in your Java. That is public, private, protected, and default. Default is used whenever the other 3 are not mentioned. Okay, ನೀವೇನು ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಲಾರದೆ int a int b ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕತ್ರಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ all those values or variables will become default by default. Okay, it will use default. Now coming on to some part of inheritance. So what is inheritance? From the base class something is derived, that is called as inheritance. Okay, so it has lots of profit, lots of losses also. So it may avoid potential problems and bugs. That is the profit of it. The cons of it is that it might cause code replication also. Okay, so there is something called as polymorphism. What is the meaning of polymorphism? Same name, different functions. That is called as polymorphism. If you have a function in one in derived class and one in base class, and the name of the function is same, but the value or the contents of the function are different, that time we say that we are using polymorphism. Okay, it is something like you remember like Elizabeth Queen, right? So it started with 1, 2, 3, 4, right? They have that sequence. Now, does it mean that because her name is Elizabeth, she will be same as that of the first queen with the name Elizabeth? No, correct? So the behavior, the looks, the way of administration, the way of speaking, the way of representation, everything will be different. Just because shares same name might not be that she is behaving same, correct? So on, I mean, that is what is called as polymorphism. What it is, just the thing that is same as the name. Apart from the name, nothing else is same. The preconditions might change, post conditions might change, maybe parameters will change, contents inside the function will change, everything will change. The only thing that is same is the name, that's all. Okay. So doing this or implementing this polymorphism is called as method overriding, or I can say just a word with overriding, not only with methods, it can be done with very many things also. Okay. So when you consider inheritance, so there is an example over here. You can just go through this. So you have a base class. Be least bothered about what the function is. You have a base class. Base class is derived by the derived class. I mean, name of the class only is given like that so that you can understand. So base class is also having a function called as foo, and derived class is also having a function called as foo. So inside base class, you're trying to print base. Inside derived class, you're trying to print derived. Now you can see that name of the function is same. That's why polymorphism is going on, and this is called as nothing but method overriding. And it is not wrong. If I have an object of base class, then the base class function will be called. If I have an object of derived class, then derived class function will be called. Okay, so either of the way it is true. And you can have different kinds of inheritances also, like multi-level. You can perform multiple but not directly. You can have a simple inheritance, you can have hybrid natured inheritance, everything. And inheritance is also making use of something called as super. So super is going to send the values from your derived class to your base class. Consider that I have, in this example only you consider, so class C is derived from class B, okay? Class C is derived from class B. So class B has one value, class C has one value. Now class C wants to send value to class B. That time what it has to do is it has to make use of super, and it has to send that value. So what will happen? It will reach class B. So that is the reason that super is being utilized or used. Okay, so this can, I mean, whenever you are using super, you cannot make use of multiple inheritance. So you need to be very careful with the multiple inheritance. So multiple inheritance in the sense you are taking or deriving from two separate base classes. That is the reason that you cannot make use of super. Now, if I have two separate base classes, if I use super, to which class should it go? It doesn't know. That is the reason that usually people say that multiple inheritance is not possible in Java, but it is done through interface and packages. Okay, through interface and packages, we make or we try to implement multiple inheritance. And apart from all those things, there is something called as abstract. So if you have an abstract member function, it means that that particular function does not have an implementation. Implementation in the sense there is no explanation present inside that. So if I mention any abstract ABC, void ABC have given, that ABC function will not be having explanation in that particular class. Whenever I'm making use of that particular class, I mean in the derived class, I have to define this abstract member function. On the similar grounds, if any of the class is considered as abstract, then that particular class cannot be instantiated. Instantiated in the sense you cannot create an object of it. So ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು class ಅನ್ನ abstract ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದರದ್ದು object create ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾವಾಗ ನಂಗೆ object create ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, what is the use of that class? The only use of that class is that I have to derive it somewhere. That is the only choice. Okay, so you can see an example. There is a class called as shape which is considered as abstract, and this is also having a function called as draw, which is also abstract, and there is some other function move which is not abstract and it is kept as it is. Now if this particular class, now this class shape is called as abstract, so my rule says that if any class is abstract, I cannot create instance of it. Instance in the sense object of it. So if I cannot create an object of this class, how should I make use of it? There is only one chance, and that chance is that I have to derive it. I have to extend it somewhere. How are you extending it? You are creating a class saying that it will extend shape. What is this? Shape is nothing but your base class. Now here, the first thing that you have to do is you should and must define draw. Why? Because this was an abstract method and it is not defined over here. So in my extended class, I have to define this particular method. It will become mandatory thing. Otherwise, it will not allow you to execute. It will show you an error. Okay, this is how your abstract is being utilized. Now, most of the times, abstract is being utilized in interfaces. So what are interfaces? Group of functions without any explanations put together are called as interface. Okay. So interface, if you want to implement them, you have to implement them inside a class. Okay, it is nothing but an abstract class. It is better you can make use of that in abstract class. Okay, all methods by default are public usually, and you have to mention it as public, otherwise you cannot make use of it. In interface ಒಳಗಡೆ ಎಲ್ಲ methods. So what is an interface? You have group of methods. ಎಲ್ಲ ಮೆಥಡ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಒಂದು ಇಂಟರ್ಫೇಸ್ ಒಳಗೆ ನಾನು ಬೈಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. I'll show that example. See here, this is an interface which name is iChef. So this is having a function called as void cook and it is taking something. So here I should not give any explanation. I cannot implement it. Interface na implement ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಂಗೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಬೇಕೇ. It is definite. So I have one more interface over here and third interface over here. Okay, all of them are having functions and all of them are not defined. None of your interface will define any of your function. Now here, there is nothing called as access control. Right, access specifier is not mentioned. There is no public, private, protected, nothing is being given here. So by default, it will be taken as public. Okay, by default it will be taken as public. Every function inside your interface is public by default. Okay, so what is happening here? If I want to implement this, I need a class. So I have a class named chef which is going to implement three things. What are that? iChef, South Park character. I mean, these two things I'm trying to implement. Now if I want to implement this first interface, then I have to provide a definition for function called as cook inside my chef class. So I have to provide cook. Okay, next I have to provide curse also because it is from South Park character, correct? So I have to explain or I have to define this one as well. So this is how interfaces are used. Using these interfaces, your multiple inheritance is being achieved. Okay, in your interfaces, you need not think like interfaces can have only methods. No, it can have normal members also. Int x can be a part of your interface. It's possible. X is equal to 5, you cannot give that. Okay, so that x is equal to 5, the value for that must be provided in your class itself, not inside your interface. So the perfect tool for implementing or using an interface for is encapsulating the classes as an inner structure, in the inner structure. Okay, I'll not concentrate on this part. Next is array collections. You have not learned this. It is completely different part. Array can be considered as a container. it can be it can have a group of multiple elements. You can store it, retrieve it, manipulate it, aggregate things. uh, the profit of using these collections is that you can move the elements, you can remove the elements by selection. Yeah, the best example for these things are queues, stacks, the classes that are readily available. I mean, if you want to implement a queue in Java, you need not create your own queue and like you take that array, all those things that you have done in data structures, those works are not required. You have everything inbuilt in Java, you can directly make use of that. Okay, so whenever you're trying to execute Java's collection framework, that is, collection is a framework inside Java. Uh, it's something like you're making use of something called as array list. Okay, it is a list, exactly whatever data structure list you have learned, it is the same list. So because it is having that array list, you can implement your stack, queues, and trees very comfortably. Okay, so you can see that here, whenever you consider any collections of arrays, that is your collection of interfaces inside your Java at an array list, you can implement set, you can implement list, you can implement queue, you can have something called as maps here. uh, Maps are used for your this one, like, you know for your location management inside your Java, you are making use of maps. You can sort them. There are very many operations also in your collection interface, like you can find the size of it, you can check whether it is empty or not, you can check what are the contents of it, add an element, remove an element, iterate contents in the sense, if you are making use of a block of code onto the array, that is that collection, so on every element you can iterate that particular contents. So you have lots of operations present in your collections, and you can just study that, and you will be studying it or going through that whenever you will be learning advanced Java. Okay, and I'll just skip this part. There is one more word called as final that you should be remembering. I mean, I'm just covering the contents that you have covered in your fourth semester. Okay, so you can have a final as a member, data member. So any of your data member, if it is final, then that particular value will be set as constant. So that value will be always constant if any of your data member is considered as final. So after final, if your final is a member function, so this function cannot be overridden. So E class, base class agi, derived class ಒಳಗಡೆ same thing. See here, you can have like final, this one is foo, and if you want to redefine that in the derived class, then it is not possible because foo is considered as final. Foo is considered as final. Okay, so you cannot override anything. Next is, if you can also have a final class. So if your class is final, then it cannot be extended. So here you can see in the example, your base class is considered as final, and if you want to extend that base class, it has to show you an error because you cannot extend base class because your base is final. Okay, so final can be used with class, function, as well as data. Okay, so whenever you have also seen about IO, might not be that you have studied it in a detailed thing, but you have directly used it. So IO is nothing but like input. You directly have that particular classes which can read streaming from files as well as from your keyboards. So whenever you consider your keyboard, even that is considered as a stream, which is characters of, and you can read it from a file as well as a network.
ಎಷ್ಟು ಇನ್ನ ಎಷ್ಟು
11 to 12 ಇನ್ನೊಂದು 5 ನಿಮಿಷ ಮುಗಿಸ್ತೀನಿ.
ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದ್ರೆ ನಾ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸರ್ವರ್ ರೂಮ್ನಾಗ
ಸೆವೆನ್ ಸೆಮ್ ಮೊದಲ ನಮ್ದು ಆ ಕಡೆ ಅದಲ್ಲ,
ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫಿಫ್ತ್ ಸೆಮ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್
ಇದು ಫಿಫ್ತ್ ಸೆಮ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್
ನನಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟ್
Okay, so you can stream any of the data that is going to flow from any of your file, and we consider everything is coming from a file. Whatever you read from your keyboard is also actually coming from an input file only, which is nothing but the keyboard file. Okay, so we consider everything as a file, and you have lots of functions for that. Your basic implementation of function is input stream, and for writing or for displaying it is output stream. That you have made use of these things in your lab already. The best one for implementing right now is your scanner class that you make use of, because scanner is very user friendly, that's all. Okay, and you have also seen about exceptions. So what is an exception? It is an event that may occur during the execution of any program, so that it is going to, in such a way that it is going to disrupt your normal flow. Something problem occurs in your normal flow, and that time that gets disrupted, that time we call such things as an exception. Okay, so there are very many kinds of exception, and these exceptions can be handled in Java, and this is a concept that is actually derived from your C++. It is not originally from Java, it is derived from C++. So even in your C++, exception is considered as an object, because whatever you define it like a class. So even here, exception is considered as an object, because you have lots of classes regarding exception which can handle these kinds of events that are occurring during the time of execution. And remember one thing, if you get an error before your execution starts, then that is not called as an exception. There is a huge difference between static errors and your exception. So whatever static errors are there, even before the execution starts, that particular errors are being found. They are not mistakes, they are not syntax errors. Like for example, if you have int a and int b, okay, int a is not wrong, int b is not wrong, value for giving a is not wrong, value, any value to b is also not wrong. Okay, now I want to do a divided by b, and at certain point of time, if b goes 0, then I have to divide a by b, which value is 0. If a is 5 and b is 0, if I divide 5 by 0, you're turning it into infinity, right? So what is a condition? Your condition is that your denominator must not be 0. That is what you want to have, correct? So when such things are there, that is not an error, it is not syntax error. According to program, you're not wrong, but logically you're wrong, correct? So if you want to use that, or you want to specify that, that is called as an exception. Okay, so there are lots of kinds of exceptions handling. Usually a regular call handling can be then done, like using like try and catch block, or you can have a call stack, you can have group of errors differentiated. It is very easy doing that. So the usual way of exception handling, or usually where the exception handling is used, is in your IO. I will not use this, I'll directly go to exception handling. This is it. So you can see here, opening up a file, determining its size, allocating the memory to such a file, reading the file into the memory, and closing the file. These all things may cause error. Okay, it may cause file exception. For example, if I want to open a file which is not existing, I want to read a file which is not existing. It is something like you want to read a book which is not present, correct? So that is a kind of an error which you may get when you try and execute it. Even compile ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ there is no problem, because if you want to open a file, it is not wrong. Syntactically, you're perfect, correct? But when you try to execute it, that time it is trying to open that particular file and check it out. When it is trying to open that file and check it out, that time it will find that that particular file is not present. That is called as exception, correct? So if the opening of the file itself has any exception, it will try to throw that. So this particular try is being caught by your first catch. So you can have something called as multiple catch blocks. So these multiple catch blocks are determined by different kinds of exceptions. So what is your first catch block telling you? This catch block must be executed if the file open failed. If you could not open this particular file, what it wants? It wants us to execute this particular catch block, and this particular catch block might be having some solution. It will be doing something. Now, if this particular opening of a file has no problem, next what the condition is, determine its size. Now this had a problem. So what it will do, it will throw an exception, and that is being caught by the second part, that is size determination has failed. So this will provide you some solution for this. Okay, now consider that opening a file was not a problem, determining its size was not a problem, but allocating that much of memory was a problem. And it threw an exception. What it will be done? It will be caught by your third catch statement, which is memory allocation failed, and it will have some solution. Now, if your condition is that the third one also got executed, but fourth one has a problem, now what it will do? It will come to the fourth catch block. What it is? Your reading has failed. Now, if fourth one also executes, but fifth one had a problem, that time what it will do? It will come to the catch statement, which is fifth one. Okay, now if fifth one also got executed properly, then it will attempt none of the catch blocks and it will just stop the program. So that is the beauty of having your exception handling in your Java. Okay, so you can have multiple catch blocks. Now, inside your multiple catch blocks, you can have something called as final. Okay, you can have something called as final. If there are something like memory deallocation and all, or garbage collection that you want to run separately, so if you want to do that, you can make use of finally block. This finally block will help you execute by default. Okay, it is going to execute everything by default, and you can also propagate your errors by your call stack as well. So you can try to call the methods. If you have any problem in calling the methods, you can make use of a word called as throws, wherein this throw of an exception will be handled by some catch blocks wherever you have defined this. So these are the contents that you have learned in your fourth semester. So apart from your collections and all, you have also visited event handling, you have also visited swings, and you might have also seen multi-threading. Okay, so right now we are not making use of multi-threading for our this one, but we will make use of event handling. So this event handling will be revisited whenever you start learning servlets. So from next this one, you can say that from next Tuesday, your servlets will be started, and servlets will will cover all your contents regarding your this one, what regarding your swings, or you can say regarding your event handling. Okay, so just be in touch. Like what you do is, for the 4 days, you have a gap of 4 days anyways, so just go through all the contents till this one at least, that is your exception handling at least, so that probably you can understand something really good. Maybe when we take the next class, you can at least get what is present in your event handling. Okay.